Roald Dahl, the BFG, Chapter 11, Journey to Dream Country. After the mad frobscottle party was over, Sophie settled herself again on top of the enormous table. "Oh, you's feeling better now?" asked the BFG. "Much better, thank you. Oh, whenever I's feeling a bit scry, a few gollops of frobscottle is always making me hopscotchy again." Well, I must say it was quite an experience. "Oh, it's a raz twizzler. It's glorious." He turned away and strode across the cave and picked up his dream-catching net. "I's galloping off now to catch some more wopsy whiffling dreams for my collection. I's doing this every day without missing. Is you wishing to come with me?" Not me, thank you very much. Not with those other giants lurking outside." "Oh, I's snuggling you very cosy in the pocket of my waistcoat. No one is seeing you there." Before Sophie could protest, he'd picked her up off the table and popped her into a waistcoat pocket. There was plenty of room in there. "Is you wishing for a little peep? Is you wishing for a little hole to peep out from?" he asked her. "There's one here already." She'd found a small hole in the pocket, and when she put one eye close to it, she could see out very well indeed. She watched the BFG as he bent down and filled his suitcase with empty glass jars. He closed the lid, picked up the suitcase in one hand, took the pole with the net on... He closed the lid, picked up the suitcase in one hand, took the pole with the net on the end in the other hand, and marched towards the entrance of the cave. As soon as he was outside, the BFG set off across the great hot yellow wasteland where the blue rocks lay and the dead trees stood, and where all the other giants were skulking about. Sophie, squatting low on her heels in the pocket of the leather waistcoat, had one eye glued to the little hole. She saw the group of enormous giants about 300 yards ahead. "Ooh, hold your breaths, cross your figures, here we go. We's going right past all these other giants. Is you seeing that whopping great one, the one nearest to us?" "I see him," Sophie whispered back, quivering. "Oh, that's the horriblest of them all, and the biggest of them all. He's called the flesh lump eating giant." "I don't want to hear about him." "He's 54 feet high," the BSG said softly as he jogged along, "and he is swallowing human beings like they sugar lumps, 2 or 3 at a time." "You're making me nervous." "Oh, I's nervous myself. I always gets as jumpy as a jog hopper when the flesh lump eater's giant is around." "Keep away from him." "Oh, not possible. He's galloping easily 2 times as quickly as me." "Should we turn back?" "Oh, turning back is worse. If they see me running away, they's all giving chase and throwing rocks." "They would never eat you, though, would they?" "Oh, giants is never guzzling other giants. They's fighting and squarreling a lot with each other, but never guzzling. Human beings is more tasty to them." The giants had already spotted the BFG, and all the heads were turned, watching him as he jogged forward. He was aiming to pass well to the right of the group. Through her little peephole, Sophie saw the flesh lump-eating giant moving over to intercept them. He didn't hurry. He just loped over casually to a point where the BFG would have to pass. The others loped over after him. Sophie counted 9 of them altogether, and she recognised the blood bottler in the middle of them. They were bored. They had nothing to do until nightfall. There was an air of menace about them as they loped slowly across the plain with long, lolloping strides, heading for the BFG. "Here comes the runty one," boomed the flesh lump eater. "Ho, ho there, runty one. Where is you splat twinkling away in such a hefty hurry?" He shot out an enormous arm and grabbed the BFG by the hair. The BFG didn't struggle. He simply stopped and stood quite still and said, "Oh, be so kind as to be letting go of my hair, flesh lump eater." The flesh lump eater released him and stepped back a pace. The other giants stood around, waiting for the fun to start. "Now then, you little grob squiffler. We's all of us wanted to know where you's galloping off to every day in your daytime. Nobody ought to be galloping off to anywhere until it's getting dark. The human beings could easily be spotting you and starting a giant hunt, and we's not wanting that to happen now, is we?" "Oh, we's not. shouted the other giants. Go back to your cave, runty one. Oh, he's not galloping to any human being country. He's going to other places. I is thinking that you's catching human beings and keeping them as pets. All right, you is, cried the blood bottler. Just now I was hearing him chittering away to one of them in his cave. Oh, you's welcome to go and search my cave from frack to bunt. You can go looking into every crook and nanny. There's no human beans or stringy beans or runner beans or jelly beans or any other beans in here. Sophie crouched, still as a mouse, inside the BFG's pocket. She hardly dared breathe. She was terrified she might sneeze. The slightest sound or movement would give her away. Through the tiny peephole, she watched the giants clustering around the poor BFG. How revolting they were. All of them had piggy little eyes and enormous mouths. When the flesh lumpy was speaking, she got a glimpse of his tongue. It was jet black, like a slab of black steak. Every one of them was more than twice as tall as the BFG. Suddenly, the flesh lumpy shot out two enormous hands and grabbed the BFG around the waist. He tossed him high in the air and shouted, "Catch him, man-ogre!" The man-ogre caught him. The other giants spread out quickly in a large circle, each giant about 20 yards from his neighbour, preparing for the game they were going to play. "Catch him, Bone Cruncher!" The Bone Cruncher ran forward and caught the tumbling BFG and immediately swung him upwards again. Whew. "Catch him, Child Chewer!" he shouted. And so it went on. The giants were playing ball with the BFG, vying with each other to see who could throw him the highest. Sophie dug her nails into the sides of the pocket, trying to prevent herself from tumbling out when she was upside down. She felt as though she were in a barrel going over the Niagara Falls. And all the time there was the fearful danger that one of the giants would fail to catch the BFG and he would go crashing to the ground. "Catch him, meat dripper! Catch him, gizzard gobbler! Catch him, maid masher! Blood bottler, catch him! Catch him! Catch him! Catch him!" And there they are. Just about make out. All of the giants throwing the poor BFG and Sophie around. In the end, they got bored with the game. They dumped the poor BFG on the ground. He was dazed and shattered. They gave him a few kicks and shouted, "Right, you little runt. Let us be seeing how fast you is galloping." The BFG ran. What else could he do? The giants picked up rocks and hurled them after him. He managed to dodge them. "Ruddy little runt. Troggy little twit. Shrivelly little shrimp. Mucky little midget. Squoggy little squib. Grubby little grub." At last, the BFG got clear of them all, and in another couple of minutes, the pack of giants was out of sight over the horizon. Sophie popped her head up from the pocket. "Oh, I didn't like that," she said. "Oh, few and far between. Oh, they was in a nasty crotching mood today, was they not? I'm sorry you was having such a whirligig time." "No worse than you. Would they ever really hurt you?" "Oh, I isn't ever trusting them." "How do they actually catch the humans they eat?" "Oh, they's usually just sticking in an arm through the bedroom window and snitching them from their beds. Like you did to me." "Ah, but I isn't eating you." "Well, how else do they catch them?" "Sometimes they swimming in from the sea like fishies, with only their heads showing above the water. And then out comes a big hairy hand and grabbles them off someone off the beach." "Children as well?" "Oh, often chidlers. Little chidlers who is building sandcastles on the beach. That is who the swimming ones are after. Little chidlers is not so tough to eat as old Grandmama. So says the child-chewing giant." As they talked, the BFG was galloping fast over the land. Sophie was standing right up in his waistcoat's pocket now and holding onto the edge with both hands. Her head and shoulders were in the open and the wind was blowing in her hair. "How else do they catch people?" "Oh, all of them is having their own special ways of catching the human being. The meat-dripping giant is preferring to pretend he's a big tree growing in the park. He's standing in the park in the dusky evening and he's holding great big branches over his head. and there he's waiting until some happy families come in to have a picnic under the spreading tree. The meat-dripping giant is watching them as they lay out their little picnic, but in the end, it's the meat dripper who's having the picnic. It's so awful, Sophie cried. The gizzard gobbling giant is a city lover. The gizzard gobbler is lying high up between the roofs of houses in the big cities. He's lying there snuggy as a sniggler and watching the human beings walking on the streets below. And when he sees one that looks like a whoopsie good flavour, he grabs it. He's simply reaching down and snitching it off the street like a monkey taking a nut. He says it's nice to be able to pick and choose what you're having for your supper. He says it's like choosing from a menu. Don't people see him doing it? Oh, never as they seeing him. Do not forget, it's dusky dark at this time. Also, the gizzard gobbler has a very fast arm. His arm is going up and down quicker than Squinkers. But if all these people are disappearing every night, surely there's some sort of an outcry. Oh, the world is a whopping big place. It has 100 different countries. The giants is clever. He's not careful to be skidding off to the same country too often. There's always switch fiddling around. Even so, do not forget that human beings is disappearing everywhere, all the time, even without the giants is guzzling them up. Human beings is killing each other much quicker than the giants is doing it. But they don't eat each other. Giants isn't eating each other either, nor is giants killing each other. Giants is not very lovely, but they is not killing each other. Nor is crocodile-dillies killing other crocodile-dillies, nor is pussycats killing pussycats. Well, they kill mice. Ah, but they's not killing their own kind. Human beings is the only animals that is killing their own kind. Don't poisonous snakes kill each other? Sophie asked. She was desperately searching for another creature that behaved as badly as the human. Even poison-housey snakes is never killing each other, nor is the most fearsome creatures like tigers and rhinoceroses. None of them is ever killing their own kind. Have you ever thought about that? Sophie kept silent. I's not understanding human beings at all. You's a human being, and you was saying it's grisling and horrigust for giants to be eating human beings. Right or left? Right. But human beings is squishing each other all the time. They're shooting guns and going up in aeroplanes to drop their bombs on each other's heads every week. Human beings is always killing other human beings. He was right. Of course he was right. And Sophie knew it. She was beginning to wonder whether humans were actually any better than giants. Even so, she said, defending her own race, I think it's rotten that those foul giants should go off every night to eat humans. Humans have never done them any harm. Oh, that's what the little piggy-wig is saying every day, the BFG answered. He is saying, well, he's never done any harm to the human being, so why should he be eating me? Oh dear. The human beings is making rules to suit themselves. But the rules that he's making do not suit the little piggy-wiggies. Am I right or left? Right. Giants is also making rules. Their rules is not suiting the human beings. Everybody's making his own rules to suit himself. But you don't like it that those beastly giants are eating humans every night, do you? Oh, I do not. One right is not making two lefts. Is you quite cosy down there in my pocket? I'm fine. Then suddenly, once again, the BFG went into that magical top gear of his. He began hurtling forward with phenomenal leaps. His speed was unbelievable. The landscape became blurred. And again, Sophie had to duck down out of the whistling gale to save her head from being blown off her shoulders. She crouched in the pocket and listened to the wind screaming past. It came knifing in through the tiny peephole in the pocket and whooshed round her like a hurricane. But this time, the BFG didn't stay in top gear long. It seemed as though he had some barrier to cross, a vast mountain perhaps, or an ocean or a great desert. But having crossed it, he once again slowed down to his normal gallop, and Sophie was able to pop her head up and look out once more at the view. She noticed immediately they were now in an altogether paler country. The sun had disappeared above a film of vapour. The air was becoming cooler every minute. The land was flat and treeless, and there seemed to be no colour in it at all. Every minute the mist became thicker. The air became colder still, and everything became paler and paler until soon there was nothing but grey and white all around them. They were in a country of swirling mists and ghostly vapours. There was some sort of grass underfoot, but it was not green, it was ashy grey. There was no sign of a living creature and no sound at all, except for the soft thud of the BFG's footsteps as he hurtled on through the fog. Suddenly he stopped. "Oh, he's here at last," he announced. He bent down and lifted Sophie from his pocket and put her on the ground. She was still in her nightie and her feet were bare. Ooh, she shivered and stared around her at the swirling mists and ghostly vapours. Where are we? We is in dream country. This is where all the dreams is beginning.